planet Earth is a special place. An oasis in the known universe. It is inhabited by many species, but has become dominated by humankind. The damage on the physical environment is now well documented. We know that humankind's activity has significantly diminished biodiversity, unbalanced the atmosphere, and changed the climate on the planet. What has been less well understood is why human beings, despite their apparent success in dominating the planet, are living with record highs of anxiety, depression and suicide, or a chronic sense of stress and meaninglessness. When human beings live in a constant atmosphere of competition, conflict, war, violence, threat, and social unrest, they do not thrive. They live in fear. Many people have lost their sense of purpose and understanding of how they can live a good and meaningful life.
Cameras are rolling, Emmy.
Human beings are not creating the best environment for themselves. They are not living in the best possible way. People are not happy. There is a real problem in the way we have created the human environment as well as what we've done to the physical environment. So we know, for instance, that there are over 40 million Americans who need help for their anxiety every year, and depression is just as bad. There are millions of prescriptions, and it costs, in the EU for instance, over 41 billion euros every year to deal with depression. We have achieved a lot of important things. We are more comfortable, more materially at ease than human beings have ever been. But in the emotional sense, in the relational sense, in the sense of how we are with ourselves, or the sense in which we have a purpose or a sense of meaning of life, it's all going wrong.
We have so much outer estrangement today in the form of wars, violence, political and cultural divisiveness, precisely because we fail to address the inner estrangement that precedes it. We have so many more of these primal fears today, I think, because of our quick fix, instant results society, where caretakers and culture are not really spending the time that is so critical to helping people to work with those fears, to grow from the anxiety about the unknown.
So many people just have no idea how they can improve things for themselves. And we know so many ways in which they can do that, but that information is not easily available.
Emotionally restorative relationships are really key to getting at the primal fears that I was talking about before. Now, these are relationships where people feel seen and heard, and that get at the roots of their problems.
The dialogue that you are proposing is very much about listening, learning to listen to the other and learning to listen to ourselves. But tell us more about that.
So in-depth, longer-term psychotherapy is a part of addressing emotionally supportive relationships, the provision of more in-depth life coaching, mentoring, especially for our undervalued or underappreciated youth who are struggling with so much despair and emotional impoverishment. Again, having the opportunity to be in relationships with people who have very substantial skills to provide those relationships.
The wisdom that has been accumulated by philosophers, by religions, and by psychologists and psychotherapists, that wisdom needs to be gathered up for the public to use and for ordinary people to begin to get wise to how they can live a freer life, a better life, a more loving life. To be human is to be aware that you are human. It is very much about attuning to the world. And that is both about attuning to the world of other people and being sensitive to what is going on and listening and understanding. But it is also very much about getting to know yourself, to learn to have a personal world in which you are aware of all your feelings.
I met so many people who suffer from life, who do not have orientation, do not know how to deal with suffering and pain, losses, divorces, separations. Why should I bear pain and adversities, difficulties? And it's a great chance with the existential approach to give them, to open their eyes. We don't give them a direct orientation. We just help them to look better, deeper into their ongoing situation, where they are, how they can make it for the better and experience a bit more joy, fulfillment, meaning, so that life is worth being lived.
You will always be anxious when you're going towards something that is important and you feel this immense sense of dread that you might not be up to it. And every time you're going to lose something of value, you're going to feel a sense of loss, a sense of depression. There always will be sadness whenever something disappears from your life. So to learn to value each of your emotions instead of thinking that anxiety is bad or depression is bad, these are all extremely useful ways of being attuned to your world. Getting attuned to these different sensations, emotions, and feelings is very much part of the art of living. And to teach the art of living to people would make a tremendous difference in how people relate to their circumstances and to the situations they find themselves in, and how they can learn to interpret their feelings and use their feelings in a way that supports them rather than opposes them. A lot of people feel as if they are in a prison and they dream of freedom. But freedom is not exactly what they think it is. To be truly free is to know in your heart and your mind and in the way you move in the world that your life is yours. And that at any time, no matter what is happening in your life and no matter how hard things are, you have the wherewithal to make something of that, to engage with it to the full, to learn from it, and to become better for it.
What is most important is the question of how do we want to live our one and only life, and what kind of choices do we make? And especially, is this the kind of world we want to be living in? I like very much what Sartre says, that we are responsible for everything we do and do not do. And very often not acting is also an action. So I think owning up to the responsibility that we have towards life and towards other human beings, but also towards all beings, is very important.
Existential freedom is not dependent on other people or circumstances. It is dependent entirely on how you understand what it means to be a human being and to be alive, and to be so fully alive that you can rise above all your crises and your difficulties and be always the better off for it once you have done that. One of the things about existential insights is that we are always aware of mortality. And human beings are scared of death. They don't like to think about it. They don't like to talk about it. And because they avoid it, it becomes a very difficult thing for them to approach. As the Greek philosophers said, it's important to remember that you will die, that your life is limited, and that the better you get at working within those limits, the more you will get out of your life. If you have a clear sense of your purpose and what it is you dedicate yourself to, and you have also a clear sense of what you learn from your past, you will find that past and future create a very healthy tension and gives you that strong sense of aliveness and direction. And both those things will greatly improve your life. Life is always in ups and downs. There is no way you can change that. No matter how you try to control things, it will still be tidal. Times when you feel great and times when you don't feel so great. The thing, though, is to make sure that you don't end up in chronic misery. And the only way to do that is to understand how life actually works. And not to be afraid of it, but to embrace that and to allow yourself to see every day of your life as a process of learning. So when you have a dark night of the soul, you learn to think of that as a moment for reflection, a moment to see life in a wider perspective and to ask yourself some pointed questions, to wonder what you want your life to be about and how you want to improve it, how you want to restructure it.
I do believe that if we were more able to confront the hard aspects of living, that it does give us that connection, and that gives us a more robust conversation where we may not feel as if we're being shamed or rejected in those conversations. I think every single human being impacts somebody else or a whole lot of things. And that can be one of the most confronting things, I think, in therapy, is to realize, oh my God, you know, I have power and I can hurt. If we know ourselves more, we can also understand other people more. I think that's the important thing, again, around the existential idea, that when we really truly confront some of those existential givens that are hard to confront, then we are connecting with other people in that way.
One of the things we do in the existential movement is that we bring together all the information and understanding that we have gained over the millennia, over the centuries, and in the many different cultures that we represent.
Existentialism came into China very early. Lu Xun was once called, the Nietzsche of China. He criticized and exposed, the reality of how Chinese people were treated.
What is exciting about the existential approach is that help us in our different countries and our different contexts to open up space for dialogue, to really listen, to sit down with people who may think very differently from us and to create connections.
That knowledge and that wisdom is something that we really want to bring more into vision, more into play for human beings worldwide, so that we can build together towards more understanding, greater wisdom, and therefore can create civilizations that do not lead to toxic conditions, but that lead to conditions that are beneficial to as many people as possible. Making the world a better place to live in for everyone is urgent, and we cannot just leave it to the economists and the politicians. We need to take charge of our own future together. We need to dare to ask for a better way of life instead of one that is based in materialism, competition, and rivalry. We can do a lot better than that. So the existential movement, which is active on all continents, with people from all over the world putting their expertise together, appeals to you to support us and make this happen. We want to produce videos and literature, and we want to be able to make interventions in groups, organizations, nations that need wisdom to resolve conflicts, to understand better what is going wrong, and to improve the situation for all concerned. And in order to do that, we do need your help. So please become a member, and please consider supporting the existential movement so that we can make those clarifying interventions all over the world.
And so we can conclude that though human existence is often entangled in chaos, confusion, and uncertainty, there are many ways in which human beings can work together to come to greater clarity and understanding. This requires collaboration and commitment from people of goodwill from around the planet, sharing their expertise. This movement brings together philosophers, psychologists, therapists, and creative people who want to share knowledge, experience, and expertise about how human beings can live wiser lives in a world that is often in turmoil. This global vision will allow human beings to evolve and find more creative and thoughtful ways of being on this beautiful blue planet.